Alright, so I'm back to work on this Ariens zero-turn mower with the 16 horsepower overhead valve Intek Briggs Stratton engine. And did a little bit of research, and it turns out all of the symptoms that I'm exhibiting are indicative of a blown head gasket. Now, I find it kind of surprising that the head gasket would be blown, because all the thing did was sit, and as far as I knew, it was working fine before I parked it a couple of years ago. So the head gasket may have just let go while I was working on trying to get this running with the fuel, the water contaminated fuel system, or the stale fuel. But now, all of this blowing oil into the fuel pump, having a ton of blow by, all of that, this is all symptomatic of the cylinder head gasket having let go. And it turns out, on some forums, I was reading that it's actually not uncommon on this model engine for that to be the fault. So the only way I'm going to be able to know for sure is to open her up. So I've got to remove that cylinder head. To remove the cylinder head, I've got to get to the bolts. So I've got to take this cover off, but I also got to remove the carburetor, muffler, and the shroud. Shouldn't be too difficult of a job. So step one, I'm going to remove this. Aiden, you want to work on this lawnmower with me? Good help is hard to find. At least he said no thank you. Politely declined to be my assistant. I think I'll put these bolts back in the holes for safekeeping. I still had that loose from working on it before. There's a head bolt right here that I can't get to with this shield in the way. There's a little bolt right here holding this bracket on. I need a, I could probably get in there with a short 3/8 socket. Let's see if I get that. Two bolts on the back side here to hold this heat shield on. Not really a heat shield, it's a guard. Well, it looks like I don't even have to take them all the way out, just loosen them. That's nice. Contemplating taking the muffler off. I'm wondering why you have to take the muffler off. I'm thinking you don't have to, unless, oh no, you do. There's a, oh, rotten pull. There's a cylinder head bolt behind, right behind here. Got to take that muffler off. What are the odds on these bolts breaking? Alright, let's put a little PB blaster on there to try and help us out. What it is here's one of the cylinder head bolts right here. There's another one of these right here where my finger is. Can't even see it. Hardly. There's also some mouse nesting crap stuck in there. But the only way to get that bolt out is to remove this little short pipe, which, for lack of a better term, we'll call it an exhaust manifold. Alright, and the only way to get this manifold off that I can see, because it's held on by this screw here and another one that's up underneath here. I can put my finger on the head of it, but there's no way you're going to be able to get one of these drivers in there, or an Allen wrench for that matter. You got to get this muffler off. So take the muffler off, then we'll be able to get to the two screws. Take this off. Oh wait, correction, what I meant to say was, so we'll snap these two muffler bolts off, and then that'll let us get to this, so we can snap these two off in the head. Oh god, is that other one a blind hole? Oh man, that's gonna be sweet. He said sarcastically. I probably should let that soak in a little longer. Oh, it's turning pretty easily, but see, then it stops dead right there. That's what happens. You get excited, and then all of a sudden, you're in a world of hurt. What I just did there was I just screwed it back in. Oh, isn't that a special muffler bolt? Look at that. Look at that thing. great. So if you do happen to snap this, you're going to be ordering a special bolt. Yeah, that's right. I'm using my patented tool here to bend this tab back. Patent pending on this thing. This one's coming a little easier. All this oil blowing out of the muffler, also indicative of cylinder head gasket. I don't know, you're probably thinking, hey, but Steve, couldn't that also be bad rings? Well, yeah. And I'm not going to say anything else on that subject just yet. Battery died, had to switch to GoPro. But I'm happy to report the only thing fate likes better than to mess up my day is to prove that I'm full of crap. Because not only did I not end up snapping the muffler bolts, these bolts actually came out real easy. Turns out these are T45, and I don't have a T45 socket. Not that I would be able to really get one in there anyways, because of the clearance issue. So I got this set like this, and I was able to get this in there, break it free, and then this one is tougher to get to, but it turns out it was so loose I was able to unscrew it. So no disaster here yet. Next up, we gotta pop this valve cover off because quite possibly a cylinder head bolt hidden underneath here, and even if there isn't, we're gonna have to take this off anyways because we're going to have to reset the valve clearance during reassembly. So here we go. Here's the push rods, the rockers. These are the adjustments. Let's undo the intake. Let's see what size these cylinder head bolts are. They're 1/2 inch. Well, hopefully these will last too. It is. Oh, okay. All right. So, voila. These are the push rods. There's the piston. Just happens to be a top dead center, interestingly enough. What are the odds of that? So I'm going to get a close-up here and show where the failure is on this head gasket.
Where is it?
It's right here, this area right here. You see how this is all damaged?
Mm-hmm.
So what's happening is, this is the cylinder where the combustion is supposed to be happening. This is a galley for the push rods for the valve train. This is common to the crankcase down there with the oil in it. And what's happening is when the explosion happens inside here in the cylinder, a lot of that pressure is blowing past this damaged gasket and pressurizing this crankcase and forcing the oil out of the crankcase into places where it's not supposed to go, namely into the fuel pump. Because you see this line right here?
Yeah.
This line comes off the crankcase and makes this diaphragm pump fuel. But what happens is, because so much pressure is being pushed into there, oil's actually being pushed into there. So that's what it is. It looks like heck. All right, I'm gonna get a close up for the. So I'm hoping this is gonna show up. A GoPro is not as good for close-ups as my other camera is, but here's the cylinder head gasket, and it's this area right here. I don't know if you can see this, but there's actually, you can see like discoloration and damage. It looks very different right here on this leading edge than it does in other areas. And that's where this has failed. If I scrape this off, you can actually see it's like eroded away. very rough, trashed. So what I was just saying was that, you know, this is your combustion chamber over here, the top of your piston, right? So this is under very high pressure when it fires and you've got that power stroke. We want all of that energy from that expanding gas, we want that all directed into the piston to push that piston down with as much force as possible. But some of that pressure is blowing by this damaged gasket section and pressurizing this area, which is not supposed to be high pressure. This is, through holes down at the bottom here, is common to the crankcase. So when this gets pressurized, what happens is it starts pushing the oil in the crankcase into places it shouldn't be. It raises all kinds of problems. So we need a new cylinder head gasket. You can actually see it right here. It's not really stuck like it should be. So there's a couple of dowel pins that help locate the head when you're installing the head. Right here and here. So we're going to need a new head gasket, and while we're at it, we're going to get the new gaskets for the little exhaust manifold pipe to make sure that that seals up good when we put it back together. And we'll probably get this intake, like flat O-ring washer deal that's inside here on the intake. We'll probably get that too, just for good measure. I'm sure it's probably only a few dollars. You can see that weird little area right there of discoloration on the gasket. There's even evidence here on the top of the block itself. You can actually see this area of really cleaned there's no deposits there, whereas this got all of this old residue still intact. And a quick note about ordering repair parts. I mean, this is an Intek 16 horsepower overhead valve. That's terrific and everything, but there's probably some variations, quite a few variations on these engines, so you got to get the correct numbers. I just want to note, there's a sticker over here that actually talks about Briggs Stratton Corporation. It says the family type, this YBSX number, and then another number over here. I found those numbers to be completely useless. And in fact, on mine, where I actually found the correct engine model number, was on, it's stamped onto the valve cover. In my case, it's a 31H777, and then when you're inputting this online, it might be hyphenated 0110E, and it's kind of hard to see next to that, but there's actually a 1. And then this number over here, this 030 whatever, I'm not sure what that number means, but you don't need that. If you get this much of the number in other words, it should be a 10-digit number for the engine, and then I believe the E1 has to do with the type or family or something like that. But anyways, that's what you want for the information as far as ordering the parts. All right, back to work on the Briggs Stratton Intek head gasket job. I apologize for the wind. It's not blowing at the moment, but I'm sure it's going to kick up again. It's been pretty breezy, so there might be some wind noise on the microphone. I just unscrewed the little tiny bolt on the side here. There's also a ground wire that goes to the solenoid on the bottom of the carburetor bowl, and I'm going to make sure I put that back on. So I took that screw out so I could remove this cover, because actually there's a hidden screw underneath there. Isn't that just grand? And the frame's in the way. Well, so I'm just gonna bend this down enough so I can just, I just noticed there was a little bit of debris in here. What this is this is just some grass clippings and stuff like that that have probably fallen in there. And also there was that mouse nest was sitting right up here, and anything that fell off this mouse nest would get kind of caught by this pan. So it kind of ends up as a catch pan, catching all the debris. But it actually serves an important job. It's actually it's a wind deflector that helps, or an air deflector that helps channel the air developed by the fan over here on the flywheel assembly to cool this engine. So I understand why it's going to be there. If it wasn't pushed for time, I would completely remove this and wash it. But we're going to just clean it up that way. I already cleaned up the surface area for the new head gasket. I cleaned the top of the piston, the carbon. Good time to decarbonize that whole thing. Here's the cylinder head. Decarbonized this. Did a quick job cleaning it. Came up pretty good. So the other thing you do on these overhead valve engines, when you have the head off, you can actually sit it on the workbench like this. You can pour a little bit of fluid in here and leave it overnight. And if any of it leaks out of the port, intake or exhaust port, then you know that your valve seats aren't sealing and you're going to need to do a valve job. It might be something as simple as just taking the valves out and lapping them. But it's an easy check to do. So I ordered my replacement cylinder head gasket off of Amazon, and I went with the genuine Briggs, and it actually ended up being fulfilled by a local distribution center, so I literally had it the next day. So again, there are aftermarket cheap cylinder head gaskets, and that's all bent. How do you like that? Look at that thing, it's mangled. You gotta be kidding me. That thing is wrecked. Well, it's a 796584. Obviously, you'd want to verify using your engine numbers. And I can't believe how bad this is. They just shipped it in this cardboard thing, and it looks like it was crushed. Wonder how long this is going to run before it fails. It's just going to be a waste of time. Look at the damage in the gasket material. You can actually see it right there, right there, there, here, and there. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4 points around the combustion area that are toast, and 1 over here. So, you know, that's just wonderful. I shouldn't have even opened it. But, we'll say this about Amazon and Amazon suppliers. They've been pretty good about replacing stuff like this. And the past 2 things I've had that were small dollar items that ended up coming in with damage or being the wrong part altogether, the sellers issued a refund very quickly, and they didn't even ask for the old part back. And in most cases it goes in the trash anyways, because I don't feel like holding on to something that I don't need forever.